Boom. In there.
Hey.
What's going on, great people? Great E, how you feeling?
Man, what's going on, everybody? It is a great evening, and we're looking forward to another great episode.
Absolutely. How many episode is this?
This is episode 6.
6 in the books. Well, 6 almost in the books. For sure. For sure. Welcome, everyone. Episode 6. I hope you have enjoyed what you've experienced so far. Again, we are just keeping the momentum rolling. And so we are rolling to episode 6 now. If you missed previous episodes, make sure, go back, check it out. We're dropping knowledge every time we bring in a new episode, and we're holding nothing back. And so this one is no less. In fact, it's even getting better every time we drop new episodes. Make sure if you haven't already, go ahead, take a moment and like this video, subscribe to the channel, hey, and share it with somebody. Brett, anything else, man? You want to shout them out, man, in a different language, all that kind of stuff, man? How you want to do it, man?
Yeah, our little tradition that I just want to say, konnichiwa, ni hao, hola, and what's up to the people?
I like it, man. I like it. We want to make sure, Brett E, that they understand what we are and what we are not. So can you break it down for them so they get that too?
Yeah, so let me tell you what we're not. We are not financial advisors. Do your own research. Be grown. You're the captain of your own ship. So it is your responsibility to do your own research based on your personal finances. What we are two people that are really great friends that have been passionate about financing for years, and we come from a finance background. We were bankers back in the day, and we're letting you all in on our conversations that we have on a weekly basis, and to give you a little bit more so that if you are, let's say, like nervous about the stock market or a little tentative about starting to invest, we're here to help you take your first steps from being a little tentative and a little shy of the market to feeling more confident stepping into the market.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you something, Brett. It's always great to hear from people about them becoming more confident, as you just shared. And so that's a big win to see people getting into the market and to see them growing for sure. For sure. And so just to kind of get an idea, hey, this is where we're coming from as we come into this episode. A big part of our last episode dealt with information, right? How to obtain information and what to be able to do with the information. And so again, if you missed a previous episode, make sure you go back and watch it. Now, one thing that we want to add to that episode was is that think about the industry that you work in. For example, you may work in healthcare. You may work in the field that deals with construction or business, whatever the sector is that you work in. We want to highly encourage you to become more informed about that industry. Why is that? It is because you have the inside scoop. Brett E put me on some game, and he was telling me about say you work in a field that deals with lumber or what have you, and you see the lumber flying off the shelf. You can't keep it in stock. Well, you would know that before many other people did. And so because you have the inside scoop on knowing what's happening on the ground level, I think you should really take advantage of looking into your industry, find the top companies in that industry, and examine them, look at them, take the info that we're giving you on these episodes and begin to evaluate that sector, that industry, and then make the best decision that works for you as to whether you should invest in that company or not. But you would do yourself a disservice to be that close to the game and not be in the game. Brett, anything that you would add to that at all, or your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I just and then like we were talking about in a previous episode, we take that idea. So for my actors that are chiming in, think about like if when you book a commercial, that company's using thousands and thousands of dollars to put that commercial out using your face, betting that your face and our face is going to make them money, right? So think about taking part of that money and putting it into stock in that company or at least that industry, right? So, for example, I think we talked about it last episode. So I've got a Home Depot commercial that's out right now, a couple of them. And so I'm using part of that money to buy Home Depot stock because they're using my face to make them thousands of dollars. So I'm using some of that money to make me thousands of dollars in the future. So you have to think about we're thinking long term, talking about like 3 years, 5 years, 10-year holds type of scenarios on our channel.
That's good. That's good. Even I think I know that part about long term is key. I think as I hear you say that, it just reminds me of when it comes to investing, like we have like, and we're gonna give y'all just all the game right here, or a good bit of it. It's important if we're going to think long term, we also have to think about a key concept that Brett E and I are going to go into today, which is we have to be able to know what is here it is, our risk tolerance. Yo, please write that word down, okay? Risk tolerance, because it's risk, and we're going to break it down what it means, all that good stuff, but understand that when it comes to risk tolerance, without knowing it, it'll cause you to jump in and out of the market because you don't know your tolerance, right? And so it's almost like if you are emotionally unstable and it's like a jump around or a move around and you don't know if you're coming or going, well, that same thing can happen without having knowledge around how the market moves and what your personal relationship is with knowing your tolerance, right? And so, Brett, even let's kind of get into it. Like, when you hear the word risk tolerance, what comes to mind? Like, what are your thoughts around? First of all, what is it? Like, what is risk tolerance?
Yeah. Let's take a step back and kind of define it. So, your risk tolerance is going to be how much you're able to basically like put your money on the table. Like if we're talking about like playing poker or whatnot, even though I personally don't consider investing gambling. Some people think it's gambling, but it's only gambling when you don't do your own research and you're just like throwing stuff out there. That's gambling. But when you research and you learn more about a company, then you're making an informed decision. So your risk tolerance is kind of like how much you're able to place in the investing space and how much you're able to see different upticks and downticks in that investment and you still be able to like sleep at night, right? So the other part of it is age. So depending on what age we are, our risk tolerance is pretty closely connected to that because we look at it as a concept of for example, if I lose all of whatever money I placed in the stock market at a given time, how easily can I go back to work and make that money back? So if you look at people that are, let's say, like 21 years old, they have a higher risk tolerance because they've got a lot of like working years ahead of them. So they can try a whole bunch of different things when you're 21, and then you can go back to work and you'll get another job, maybe start a business and be doing half and half of that. And then like you can make that money back because you got a lot more time. But if you look at like maybe like our parents' age or our grandparents' age, their tolerance is a lot less because their ability to physically go out and make that money back is a lot less. So, and so they're more in the conserving the money that they've taken their lives to build.
It's beginning to feel a lot like spring. Not just out there, in here. The colors are brighter. The smells are earthier. The ideas are bigger. And the appliances are everywhere. Everything you need for spring and our best prices of the season feels like spring at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Versus putting it in riskier areas in order to have like the possibility of explosive growth or the possibility of explosive loss.
That's good. That's good. I think with what you broke down here, Brett, like people may have some degree of their risk when it comes to their lifestyle. For example, some people may say, hey, I tend to live a little more on the edge. I enjoy trying things. I'm a bit more adventurous, maybe a bit more of an extrovert personality to some degree, etc. Like, some people have an idea from their personality standpoint. So I think what you shared is a perfect tie-in with them now. They'll begin to see that more than likely to some degree when it comes to the way that they invest, for sure, man. So I think the way you broke that down is perfect. If I was to add anything to that, it would just be, of course, like your family dynamic, or whether you are single or not. Like those things also, play a role. And maybe if you have a family with kids, etc., you may be less risky, right? Maybe if you're single and you don't have a lot of people who are depending on your income, you may be a little more riskier. Brady mentioned age, which is key. The only thing I would add to that would be is when it comes to risk tolerance and what is it would be, don't feel like, say you are I don't know, late 30s, late 40s, 50s, etc. Don't feel like you have to make up for all the lost time in a month, right? Don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. And so
Right.
what happens is you make riskier moves and you may not be that risky. So giving yourself time to make up for it. And if you go back to our previous episodes, as we talk about some things about entry points, how to get into certain stocks, etc., you'll find that you'll actually be able to make up for time well with investing at the right times. And so, Brett, man, that was like on point, man. How you broke that down. And so I think if it was me, in fact, I'll ask you this question. If it was me, I would then be asking myself, okay, what are the different types, like what are the risk tolerance, like what are they? Can you give me what they are? Can you speak to that some here? Like, what does that even mean, like regarding what are the different types of tolerance when it comes to risk?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that you can think about it, and I'll say like a few different ways so that maybe like it connects to one person differently um, versus the other. So you can have like a low, medium, and high. Another way to think about it would be like conservative, medium, aggressive, or think about it like a stoplight. If you had like red light, yellow light, green light, or maybe the opposite, like red light, yellow light, green light. Green light would be like, let's go get it. Like I got all the time in the world to make this money back, but I want to put it in whatever is the chance that has like the biggest possibility of explosive growth kind of thing. And then like I think it was an excellent point that you brought up about like if you have kids, because me like not having kids, it didn't even cross my mind at the time. And I was like, oh yeah, kids want to eat like every day. So you can't like risk everything when you've got like multiple mouths to think about and to keep concerned about. And it's a very good point of like, no matter what age you are tuning into us from, like our channel is about kind of cultivating beginners and turning them into like being able to walk into the market confidently and start taking baby steps. But it doesn't matter what age that you start. You always want to start creating your base to where you have a stable platform to work off of. And then you can start taking little chances here and there, but always like increasing your base to the level of chances that you're taking, right? So you can't like start your base and be like, I want to start my base and maybe it's $500 worth of ETFs. And then like later on down the line, let's say you get a raise at work or something like that. And then you say, I want to take $1,000 chance on a speculation stock. No, you got to grow your base out to support whatever chance that you want to take. But so like with conservative approaches, you really want to, in my opinion, you really want to focus more in the ETF building, because those are they're spread out amongst a lot of different stocks and a lot of different companies. And so like if something happens, like when the market's really shaky, your account isn't really shaky because you've got a lot of ETFs that balance you out. That's a strong base. Now, when you start getting into like a more aggressive approach, that would be when once you've formed a base, then you start departing from that ETF strategy a little bit and you start picking individual stocks maybe that are like the top tier of the ETFs. And then you start building a whole column basically of one stock that's like your favorite out of the ETFs. And then you pick another stock out of that ETF, you build another column, Then you start building a house. You see what I'm saying? Based on like a strong foundation.
That's good, man. That's good. That reminds me of when I was first beginning to invest, I would just listen to whatever they were saying. Like I heard on the news, and I would just be picking stuff. And then what I found was that my risk tolerance didn't fit that mold. Like that didn't work for me, especially like if that stock started dipping and going down. Nah, like that it didn't work for me. Like with my risk tolerance, so it made me go and learn more about okay, what are the different types ways to invest. So how you broke that down, man, is spot on. Which reminds me of this. I think this will help them, our entire audience. We love y'all. Like we want to give y'all as much game as possible. And so we were talking about this briefly. Like, what if we had $1,000? If you had $1,000 to begin putting it into the market, like what would that look like? Depending on if you were more risky or you were more conservative, right? And so, Brady, let's get into this. Let's talk it. Like if they were more on the riskier side and they have
Okay.
$1,000, what's your thoughts, man? Your recommendations about what they should do with that $1,000?
So I would think of like breaking it into quarters of like $250 at a time. Like so you break that 1,000 into 250, 250, 250, and 250. And so maybe you take a quarter of that. If you're more risky, maybe only a quarter of that is like ETF type of plays. And then maybe 75% of what's left, that's where you're putting in like straight shares of maybe like Apple or Microsoft, or maybe even if you're like more super on the riskier side, maybe like 50% of that is like Apple, Microsoft type of shares. And then the other 25% that's left. So you've got like your ETFs, that's 25%. Then 50% is like your stable stocks, but they're individual shares like Apple, Microsoft, things like that are like really stable performing companies, but you're buying individual shares. And then this other 25% can be things that maybe in your job field that you see an idea coming that like the rest of the world hasn't caught on to yet. So let's say you're working in the nursing field and you see something coming out about like gene therapy that is going to change the world, you feel like, and everybody's talking about it in your hospital or in like your community of doctors and nurses, but a parent company that owns them that's publicly traded, and then maybe you start taking 25% and you start putting it in that area. That would be kind of like the general setup that I would say for someone that's more on the riskier side. Let's say like maybe 25 years old and under kind of range, or if you just already have a strong base based on things that you've already built, then you take that on that way. What would you say, Alex, as far as like more on the conservative side, what kind of approach might you take that way?
Yeah, I definitely can speak to that. Let me ask you one quick question though. What about
It's beginning to feel a lot like spring. Not just out there, in here. The colors are brighter. Smells are earthier. The ideas are bigger. And the appliances are everywhere. Everything you need for spring and our best prices of the season feels like spring at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
I know it. Somebody gonna ask us about crypto. I know it. We're gonna hear about crypto. So like on the riskier side, how would you incorporate for those who are interested, like what percentage would that play? Like what were your thoughts there?
I would say out of that $1,000, maybe 10%
Hmm.
to maybe 15%. But that's really, if you've got a strong base, you've earned the right to do that by creating your strong base. And then when you step into the crypto universe, so to speak, start with the more stable companies, which would be kind of like the Apple and Microsoft version of cryptocurrencies. And we'll talk about cryptocurrencies because I'm invested in cryptocurrencies, and we'll talk about down the road, we'll talk about like options trading, NFTs, cryptocurrency. We'll get into all of that. I want to make sure that we get people kind of like off the runway first before we start talking about all the higher level types of conversations and ways to get into those fields. But we're definitely going to talk about it because that's something that I'm passionate about. I've got lots of crypto, and we'll be diving into the NFT space very shortly. So we'll be talking about that as well. But yeah, with crypto, if you are on the green light side, then I'm thinking like 10% of what you allotted into investing would be into the crypto space.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I think you asked me about as far as on the conservative side, like for someone who's a bit more conservative. So I would say this, like based off the mentality of someone who may operate on that side, I would say this first. Like I think for that person, if safety is important to you, then you should first consider this even before you begin investing. Do you have an emergency savings, right? An emergency fund. If you don't have that, then and you're more conservative, then I would recommend don't invest at all. Like cash is a position. I understand that cash is a position. So because what happens is if you don't have that part and you start investing, and even on a conservative side, of course, you can still possibly not lose money, but your account can fluctuate, and that fluctuation may throw you off, and you pull from that later to be able to do something on the saving side of it. And so, to prevent that altogether, make sure you're good on the emergency fund side of it first. So, I would definitely like recommend that as like a starting place. Then after that, you're good to go there from like $1,000. What would I say? It would be this is that I'm like ETF. Start there. Start with the ETFs. We explained it in our first couple of episodes, an exchange traded fund, because you're not, while you may not see the run up and these super high percentages off of some individual stocks, while you may not see that, you will see the steady growth. It's like the elephant approach at times where it doesn't have to be super slow because some of them actually do progress well. And so ETFs and even the indexes, for example, ones like the SPY, look that up. Look up QQQ for those who are very more technology driven. Those in the DIA, look into those options as an opportunity to have a more steady approach. And then on the ETF side, again, go to one that I recommended a while back. It's a sector. It breaks down different sectors. ETF.com is one of those sites where you can look at different ETFs in their sector. I would start there. And so I'm saying I'm thinking if you don't have anything invested and you're conservative, I would encourage you to go 75% ETF, 25% or so if you want to get some exposure to individual stocks on the more, but top companies, right? Brett mentioned some of them. Brett even mentioned some of them. I'll throw some of them out. If you're tech driven, it could be the Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon of the world, like those top type companies. If you're on a different sector, you may look at ones more like the Home Depot or the Walmart, the Target, the more like defensive stocks that work in any environment, right? The Dollar Generals, etc. Those companies work well even when oftentimes the economy is not doing so well. And so, if you want to have some of that exposure, I would encourage you, to take the other 25% and get some of that exposure. But again, only top companies. Did I get that? Like top, like not the one you heard on the grapevine on the way, like on the side. No, do your research, and that's how I would break it down. 75% ETF. If you're new to investing, 25% on like very solid, strong companies. That way, even on red days, which are days when your account is a bit down, the drawdown isn't as bad as someone who might have a lot of individual stock exposure and they're down, 20, 25, 30% down, and you're down 4 or 5%, hey, that may fit you well. So that's how I would approach it if someone was a bit more conservative for sure.
One question that I wanted to ask you based off of where you were going is when you were talking about emergency fund, just in your personal opinion, what is an amount that like someone should kind of think about? Let's say if like the goal is to be able to put $1,000 eventually towards investing. Like in your opinion, what kind of amount is an emergency fund that people should get in their savings account or whatnot, like aside from their checking account before they start tiptoeing into the investing world?
Yeah, I would say definitely once you know your risk tolerance, I would highly. Now this is me. Again, I'm married, I have a family, etc. I'm gonna give you a number, and honestly, even if you were single, I would still give you the same number, right? I want all of you minimum to shoot for 12 months. Minimum. 12 months of living expenses in the bank. Listen, your sleep is going to be better. So ideally, it's 6 to 12 months. Ideally, I want to encourage you all who want to go to the next level. Man, imagine whatever your monthly expenses are. If you had 12 months worth of that in the bank set aside, that way, if something hits the economy or you have a job loss, an emergency, whatever it is, you're not even like second nature. It's like I got it. I'm covered. I'm good to go. Right. And so it just brings an extra level of peace. And so for those who want to go next level, I will. There are some who recommend more than that. Right. And if that's you. If you're more conservative, go for that. But I would encourage everybody like shoot for the goal of 1 year. 1 year set aside and then work from there. Yep.
That's smart, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, it seems like we hit the people with some good info today.
Absolutely.
I really like your approach. I really like how you come with the knowledge. And like we said, we're going to be down the road. We're going to be touching on like options trading, which is like the next level of stock investing. And we'll be going over like calls and puts and why you might want to look at that in one way or another, depending on your risk tolerance. And then we're going to be getting into NFTs and cryptocurrency, or really cryptocurrency and then NFTs, because that's like those are like the steps walking into like the metaverse and to the matrix, is what I used to call it.
That's good, man. That's good. Listen, if you didn't already, make sure again you like the video. Like, go ahead and press that like button. Make sure to drop a comment below. Let us know. Brady is talking about NFTs and cryptos and options, various things. If you have questions about those kind of things or want to see it featured, and specific things you want to know, drop it in the comments so that we get that feedback and can build off of it. So again, like the video, comment on the video, and if you've not already, go below and subscribe to the channel. We're only going up from here for sure. Brett E, any final words?
I just want to say to the people, you know me, sayonara, zaijin, adios, and woohoo!
I like it. I like it. Let's keep building up. Proud of you all for your growth. We'll see you in the comments and on the next episode. We're out. Peace.